So growing up, I had probably two of the opposite intensities of parents. On the one hand, I had my dad. If I were to describe him and my relationship in a few sentences, it would be, I viewed him as detached and cold. Not like a terrible dad in the sense of like he never did anything bad, but I never felt like I could go to him for support. I never felt like I could go to him for even a hug, to be honest. I was met very often with negativity, with lack of emotional support that I needed and wanted, but he was always there for me, for example, financially. So I would explain it as detached, cold, and then any type of connection or closeness we did have was me being in trouble and him sort of reprimanding me for it or something like that. Now, on the other hand, I had my mom, who, if you were to imagine the complete opposite of that, was extremely loving and caring, always there supporting me emotionally, so on and so forth, to an unhealthy degree. And what I mean by that is, especially after my parents got divorced and she went through a phase of her own withdrawal because she was dealing with her own things, she then came back and realized there was a disconnect between her and I. And because of that, she tried her absolute best to rebuild the relationship, but to the point where it was overbearing. It was like helicopter mom, smothering with love and affection, and like always making sure we're okay and we have everything we need, and to the point where it would be like 10 questions of the same question. Almost as if, at least my perspective, my opinion, her okayness, her happiness, her stability depended on me and our relationship being okay. And I think especially that combination of these two extremes really made me feel like and ingrained some deep beliefs that I wasn't able to be my own person. Number one, because whenever I tried to, my dad would reprimand me and sort of pick apart what I was doing and tell me it wasn't going to work and that I shouldn't do it, and if I wasn't doing what he wanted, I was basically like being or having attitude and being ungrateful and blah 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 blah. And then on the other hand, I couldn't be or do what I wanted to do, because if it then, for example, meant me wanting to leave my mom's house early because I wasn't feeling okay in the area and the space, and because we've had a fight, she would then break down and cry and be like, am I such a bad mother, blah 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 blah. So in another way, I felt like I couldn't, be what I wanted to be. And ultimately, if I were to summarize and simplify this whole thing, I was controlled. I felt like I had no chance, no opportunity, especially while under my parents' roof or roofs, of finding out who and what the fuck I am, because I was so controlled, either directly or indirectly, by both of them. Who they wanted me to be or who they needed me to be, or and that made me a very, very insecure person. And it's not only them, and I will also say they've both grown and worked on their stuff a lot, which I appreciate them for. And obviously I understand all the nuances and all the complexities underneath all of this, and they did their best, it's not their fault. At the same time, it's their responsibility to work on it, blah, 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 right? All of that stuff, I get that. So don't let those complexities take away from the message of this. But I was an insecure person because I never was able to learn or had the chance to really figure out what it is to be a person not connected to or tied to or controlled by parents. So as soon as I could, I left the house. I went to America. And by the way, I'm from South Africa. So it's a pretty big thing to do for somebody from a third world country where everything we could really need is in our country or even in my town, for me to go overseas. I worked odd jobs, not wanting any dependency on either of my parents, or at least as far or much as I could get away from it as I could. Sorry, I got hiccups. So I worked these odd jobs and I saved up enough so that I could make the decision to go to America for just 3 months. And I did. And that 3 months ended up turning into 3 years, which then ended up turning into 8 years of travel in general to then Southeast Asia and blah, 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 blah. And every time I would go back home, I would face similar things with my parents. Even though I was well over an adult and independently earning money, I would still face the same things of my mom gripping and holding on emotionally for her stability, and my dad sort of like cutting me down and not just connecting emotionally. And along my journey, I was a summer camp counselor for like 3 years, so I worked with kids and I got to see their interactions with parents. I got to basically, in a way, be their parent. I was an au pair, which is literally a live-in nanny, for 2 years. So I was more of a parent to some of these kids than their actual parents were, which is a whole nother story. And then, as I said, I became a coach, helping people work on their internal beliefs and identities and unconscious conditioning and patterning and insecurities and blah, 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 blah. And I got the chance to work with a few parents who had kids, and we got to sort of dissect and improve some of the situations they were having with their kids. And I got to see how much these parents' own internal need for either connection with their kids or their aversion to connection with their kids because of their own internal fears of vulnerability and, can I say this? Should I say that? What will happen to the kid? Blah, blah, all of this stuff, right? It affected their relationships really badly. And it kept reflecting back to me the relationship with my parents. And somewhere along my journey, I stopped and I said, what would I have really needed from my parents? What would have made me, what would I have wanted from them? And what would I have needed to feel like I could be autonomous yet cared for? Independent yet able to connect with them? And the idea that came to me was, all I really wanted and needed was for them to be a safety net. In every way of the word. Emotionally, financially, physically, etc., etc. And what I mean by that is, I want them to be there to support me while I am discovering and venturing and becoming my own human being. I want them that if I started a business venture and it completely failed and now I am fucking in poverty, for them to be willing to, if they can, obviously, and this is what I love about my dad, by the way. One of the things I love about my dad, I love him in general, is that I know no matter what, I know that he will financially support me in whatever way he can. Because that's one of his ways of showing love. Which has changed, by the way. Like, he is able to do it in other ways. And I know, for example, with my mom, no matter what, she is somebody I can go to and speak about anything. anything if I need to. And I was like, how nice would it be to have that without the control, without the fear, without basically their own internal insecurities, limiting beliefs, patterns and conditioning coming into play. And I was like, I know that if I had that, I would probably be the same person I am today, if not more, because it would have probably happened quicker, without all the insecurities. Now again, I'm not blaming them for it, although I know it comes from them and the way that they acted and stuff like that. But I also understand that they were doing their best, and they're also coming from their own conditioning and patterning and insecurities because of their parents or whatever they went through, and blah, 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 right? But the main idea was like that concept, that idea, that unconditional support, safety net, so that I can venture out into the world, but if I need to, if I fall, they've got me. That would be it. And I saw aspects of that when I was working with clients, where certain solutions or ways of like the relationship getting better was them adopting this idea in certain ways. And one of the most beautiful scenarios that I feel like really amplifies and solidifies this, so I'm just getting away from the light, was I went home the one time and I went to this waterfall. I was on this hike, and there was this waterfall with this big rock structure around it, and there were like little mountain side passes, if you want to call it that, and there was places where you could like climb up and all that kind of thing. And I was sitting maybe like halfway up those rocks, just like enjoying the moment and enjoying the time. And it was quite like a secluded space. It's a little bit not like dark, but like the sunlight can't really get in, that kind of thing. And this family comes up, and there's a mom and a dad and a little boy, and this boy must have been like 4 or 5 years old, right? So he's like hyper, and he's got all this energy, and he's like running around, and he's like enjoying it, and the parents are kind of like, trudging along behind, like clearly there for the kid. And all of a sudden this boy looks at me, and he sees me halfway on the rocks, and he gets the idea that he needs to climb rocks now, right? So he runs up these rocks, and he's like climbing up, and he goes way further than me because I'm actually scared of heights, but he goes double the height of me, where he's now like climbed up this little pathway that like you have to literally like lean your back against to get up to, and he's on the very edge, like right on this top, must be about like 7, 8, 9 feet off the ground. To the point where if this kid slipped or fell, he would at the very least be badly injured. And then I look at the parents, and the dad's on his phone. Dad isn't even there, he couldn't be bothered. And the mom is like shouting at him from the bottom. It's like, come down, you can't be up there, come down, right? All this fear, all this like forcing. And that only makes the kid want to like go more. Because obviously as a kid, he's like, you don't control me, like who are you, like blah, blah, blah. Like, that makes me want to explore more. Like, oh, I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing. I wonder what happens, right? He wants to experience, he wants to understand. And then I remember this idea that had come to me of like, how in this moment would I be a support net, a safety net? So I'm already halfway up, so I stand up and I move towards the kid, and I'm like, hey, do you need any help? Like, do you wanna come down? And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm right here if you need me. And I stand sort of in the distance where if he did slip or fall, I could catch him, I could grab him, whatever. And I just sit there and I wait and I let him do his exploring. And his mom's still like calling, and I look back at her, I'm like, it's okay, I got him, like, don't worry about it. I'll watch him. And I'm standing there and he's like, as I said, maybe 2 meters away from me. And he's exploring, and all of a sudden his foot slips. And he catches himself. And I'm like, are you okay? You good? And now he's looking at me and he turns and he looks and his eyes are wide, and now he's fucking terrified. Now he's like, oh shit, I fucked up, kind of thing, right? And now he's like, his confidence is gone and he's like shaky and he's like, you know, how do I get down, blah, blah. And he's freezing, obviously, because now something bad has happened. But I'm there. And I'm like, hey, don't worry, buddy. Like, do you need my hand? And then he slowly reaches out and he grabs my hand, and I pull him down off the ledge and he makes it down on the floor. As soon as he gets on the floor, back to normal, completely happy, running around, having fun. And his mom looks at me and she's like, thank you, really appreciate that. And that to me was the epitome of what I'm talking about. Allowing him to explore, to discover, to make mistakes, to fall, and then realize he needs help. And then I'm there. Whether you agree or not, I know in my fucking bones that that was the right way to do it, and that is the right way to do it. And when I say right, I don't mean anybody's wrong. I mean, if you want to have a relationship where you allow your child to discover themselves, to become the human they are meant to be, they have to experience, they have to explore, they have to try things. And if you can be there as a safety net, as a support system, without your fears and your pride and your fucking patterns and how your parents did it getting in the way, that is how that child of yours will become the ultimate version of who they are, and still have a beautiful relationship with you, and still want to be around you and be close to you, because you are giving them the freedom, but you're also there in case. And I don't literally mean by standing on rocks, obviously, unless that happens. I mean by, letting them explore the world, letting them explore what they need to and want to explore, obviously within your actual ability. But even then, find other ways if you don't have the ability, physically, financially, whatever. But just know that, or let them know that you are supporting them, that you are there in case they slip. Because that's, I don't know. When I think about how I've lived my life and how I went the complete opposite to almost in spite of my parents, that went really bad in the beginning. I did a lot of things that were rebellious that ended up causing me to slip and fall. And when I started doing it a more healthy way, I started recognizing and realizing what I was doing for myself was basically what I wanted my parents to do, which was I was being my own safety net. By making sure I had backup plans and, doing things responsibly in the financial sense, all that kind of thing. But I basically had to reparent myself. And all I'm saying, all I'm asking, I guess, all I'm inviting you is to take that idea on board, see how you can implement it in yourself or for yourself, and let it be like a foundational concept or idea. Let it be a seed that gets planted. If you disagree, that's okay, no worries. But I know the right ones, especially through this video, that'll hit something in you. And I want to allow you or invite you to allow that. And let it let it play in your mind, and let it come in your mind when you're interacting with your kids, especially in the moments where you're angry, upset, scared, whatever. Because it'll save you a lot of hurt, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of disconnection that doesn't need to be disconnection. And it'll allow your kid to become the person they're meant to, their truest essence, way faster than it did for me. Because you will be what they needed you to be. And on top of that, it'll teach them indirectly to be that for themselves too. And if you are a parent or a future parent that has any blocks or fears or resistances that are causing you to react in ways that you know aren't the ways you want to react, then I'd like to invite you to ponder the idea of working with me, because that's a big part of what I help people with. Their own internal resistances and blocks that cause them to show up in unhealthy or unhelpful ways. And you can do so by sending me an email or checking the link in my bio when I do set up a back-end system. And we'll see if it's a match. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.